Gauteng Division of the High Court. We commemorate tonight our brother Justice R Monama. The Judge President of London, presently serving as the Judge of the Constitutional Court, Acting Judge President of London, Judges of the Gauteng Division assembled here, attending this sitting by video link, distinguished representatives of the professions, members of the professions attending this sitting by video link, and other members of the profession here assembled. We acknowledge and greet the delegation from the family of our brother Judge Monama, present amongst us in order to grace this session. I'm going to call upon various representatives of the profession to speak, Judge President to speak, and not a representative of the family to speak to us in this special session. Thereafter, there will be a presentation of a book of tributes collected by the judges of this division in Honourable Justice R Monama, which will be presented to the family. The first person I call upon to speak is Mr Mapetu, the Chairman of the Black Lawyers Association. Kindly rise and address the sitting.
Thank you, Judge President Lambo, Deputy Judge President Medwara, Deputy Judge President Sutherland, members of the judiciary and the magistracy, family, friends, colleagues in the legal profession. Kindly receive comradely salutations from the National Executive Committee of the Black Lawyers Association, led ably by the Comrade President Bayete Maswazi and Denise Linya. Judge President, the Black Lawyers Association is particularly moved by this occasion because of the long-standing relationship with Judge Monama since the time that the BLA was but an idea. We are immensely proud of and grateful for Judge Monama's contribution to the formation of the Black Attorneys Discussion Group, later to be formalized as a BLA. We are blessed that some of his peers, such as Judge Mushidi, Judge Mopateng, and retired Judge Dr. Saviti are still with us. Today, the BLA is an organization with a national footprint spanning all the 9 provinces of the country. Judge President, for the sake of brevity, we propose to address you on 2 periods or perspectives of Judge Monama's illustrious life. The first is Judge Monama's writings. Judge President, in the year 1983, whilst in the employ of the Center for Applied Legal Studies at Wits, the young Monama published a paper entitled "Is This Justice?" A study of the Johannesburg Commissioner's Courts. In it, Monama reports on his observations of the procedure and practices employed in the Johannesburg Commissioner's Courts in the period December 1982. The Commissioner's Courts, colloquially known as the past courts, a name derived from the fact that it was these courts that adjudicated on offences relating to contraventions of apartheid past laws, were notorious for the stringent application of laws that restricted the movement of Black Africans. On page 40 of the paper, Monama writes as follows, open quote, "It is often said that this is the reason why the decision whether or not to postpone a criminal trial is one within the discretion of the presiding officer alone. Yet the impression given in the Commissioner's Courts is that the prosecutor has a free hand on the subject of postponement. On the 1st, the 6th, and 8th December 1982, the female court, yes, you get right, the female court handled 168 cases, and in 74 cases, applications for postponement were granted at the request of the prosecutor without a single protest or question from the Commissioner. Such a figure represents 44.04% of the total cases tried in that court during these 3 days in question. Monama continues to write, open quote, "Such a high number of postponements should be a cause of concern, particularly because the accused persons are unrepresented and their rights to bail is neither explained nor respected." Judge President, I almost said Judge President. The second perspective is his colleague's point of view. In John Black Edwards versus First Rand Bank, a decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal of September 2016, Shomwe J.A. writes as follows, open quote, "It is a well-known fact that the draftsmanship of the National Credit Act 34 of 2005 is far from being a model of excellence. This appeal mainly concerns the interpretation and applicability of Section 127 of the Act. The Gauteng Local Division, Monama J, in parenthesis, ordered the consumer to pay the respondent a sum of money. Close quote. In dismissing the appeal, the court reasoned as follows, open quote, "The court accord indicated clearly that what was before it was a consideration of the quantum of damages." Close quote. Judge President, we make bold to say that the BLA has grown an inch taller because of the SCA's affirmation of Judge Monama's clear judgment. The BLA is vindicated and eminently pleased that it was never wrong to insist on transformation of the judiciary. Judge President, in announcing the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in September 2020, the American President Joe Biden said the following, open quote, "We learned of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is not only a giant in the legal profession, but a beloved figure. And my heart goes out to all those who cared for her and cared about her. She practiced the highest American ideals as a justice. Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood for all of us. Once more, the BLA sends its heartfelt condolences to family and friends, and all those who cared for Judge Monama and cared about him. We are unequivocal in our assertion that because of his instrumental role in the formation of the BLA, Judge Monama has multiplied in each and every one of us. Judge President, the BLA wishes to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Move now on the chairman of the Johannesburg Bar Council, from down.
Honourable Judge President Lamu, Honourable Deputy Judge Presidents Mdwaba and Sutherland, Honourable Justices and other notable attendees. On behalf of the Johannesburg Society of Advocates, I express my gratitude to the opportunity today to express our sincere condolences to the family members of the late Mr Justice R Monama present today, and to pay tribute to a much appreciated member of our judiciary. On 3 November 2010, former President Jacob Zuma announced the appointment of 17 judges to various courts across the country. Justice Ramaruma Monama was appointed as a judge of the North and South Gauteng High Court with effect from 31 January 2011. He was appointed alongside fellow attorney Mohammed Ismail, Pretoria Bar Council Chairperson Hendrik de Vos, and Senior Counsel from the Johannesburg Society of Advocates, Mayisa Catherine Sitilwana and Willem Beppner. From his appointment, Justice Monama actively contributed to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity and effectiveness of the court. Socrates aptly described the essential qualities of a good judge as follows. 4 things belong to a judge: to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. Justice Monama exemplified all these characteristics as scrutiny of his written judgments confirmed. Justice Monama presided over many cases in the Gauteng High Court, but he will be particularly remembered for the judgments he delivered in criminal cases he adjudicated. In the restricted time allotted, I shall highlight a few of Justice Monama's key judgments. In the matter of Makamu versus the state, the accused was charged with 3 counts of rape and robbery of a young woman in Johannesburg in May 2010. The Regional Magistrates Court in Johannesburg convicted him on all counts and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Justice Monama presided over his appeal and said against the Regional Court sentence. He found that the trial court did not err in its application of the law and properly considered the relevant facts. He further held that the youthfulness of the accused in the circumstances was not a compelling and substantial factor which warranted departure from the prescribed minimum sentence. The appeal was consequently dismissed. Justice Monama delivered judgment for the full court in the matter of Mindery versus Shabalala and others on 8 April 2014. The appellants had bought a property during 1997, which they had led to tenants. During November 2008, the respondents took possession of the property and evicted the tenants unlawfully. It was subsequently revealed that the respondents had fraudulently obtained transfer of the property into their names. Justice Monama for the court declared the falsified contract of purchase between the parties as null and void and cancelled the transfer of the property to the respondents. In terms of the order, the property was to be retransferred to the first and second defendants' names. Other notable judgments of Justice Monama include IPS Investments versus Johannesburg Polytechnic Institute, wherein he ordered the eviction of the respondent, which operated primary and high school businesses from an office block after the expiration of their lease. But he suspended, notably, his order until the end of the particular academic year. Another matter, St. Lacey versus Nedbank Limited, in March 2017, he dismissed the application for the reinstatement of shares. More recently, in 2021, he presided over the prosecution of pop-dead serial killer Nomia Rosemary Glover, which appeared in the headlines. Glover had orchestrated the murder of several members of the family for insurance payouts in the period 2012 to 2018. Justice Monama sentenced her to, amongst others, life imprisonment of the 6 murders. By meting out strict justice to those who well deserve it, Justice Monama ensured the continued confidence of the public in our courts of law. Justice Monama also presided over the historic murder case of apartheid activist Ahmed Timur, who was killed in 1971. The accused in the matter, apartheid-era police officer Jean Rodriguez, died in September last year before the matter became concluded. I met Justice Monama on 23 November 2016 when I appeared before him for the first time in the matter of McLaren versus the Parkview Golf Course. In the morning before court, I went to introduce myself together with my colleagues Fried and Lambda. Justice Monama invited us to take a seat in his chambers to discuss the imminent court proceedings. The conversation did not dwell too long on the intricacies of the review application and soon reverted to more social pleasantries. The discussion culminated in Justice Monama regaling counsel with a sonorous rendition of Sorry Moray, which he sang in flawless Afrikaans from beginning to end. That is how I shall remember Justice Monama, was able to preserve the human element in the midst of what all other respects would have been a stressful encounter for opposing counsel. My colleagues report to me that they enjoyed similar pleasant experiences when they appeared in Justice Monama's court. Members of the society are profoundly saddened to learn of his passing, and he will be sorely missed. To the family and friends of Justice Monama, we join you today to express our solidarity with your grief at the loss of a beloved husband and adored father and cherished friend. To the honourable members of the judiciary present today, who have lost a valued colleague, we express our sincere condolences for the loss of Justice Monama, whose remarkable career ended all too soon when he passed away on 17 February 2022 following a short illness. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Advocate for the matter. I call now on Judge President Colombo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Judge President Sutherland. Let me start by acknowledging the presence of Judge Monama's family amongst us, and we are happy as a judiciary that you could make time to be with us, because this is how we, as a judiciary, honor and remember one of our own who has departed this earth. So thank you very much for making the time and coming and being with us here to listen to all the tributes that are being said and mentioned about Judge Monama. Let me also thank Deputy Judge President Sutherland for arranging this, and to also recognize Acting Judge President Ledwaba, who didn't have a problem in me as persona non grata in this division these days to get a platform and also talk. I also want to thank all the members of the judiciary who are here, who made time, despite the restrictions that we have because of this pandemic, to be part of this ceremonial court sitting to honor our departed colleague, Judge Monama. I also want to thank the leadership of the profession. I'm happy that the BLA made sure that they come here and are part of this process. But to all the other leadership figures in the profession, thank you very much for joining hands with us as a judiciary to honor our departed colleague, Judge Monama. As a judiciary, we are the biggest loser because of his passing. Members of the bench in Gauteng have, since Judge Monama left us, been talking amongst themselves, but calling me and sharing with me their moments that they spent with Judge Monama. Key amongst these was that he played a father figure role, especially to all newly appointed judges and acting judges. He always had his door open for colleagues to come and seek his guidance about how to approach matters. So as a judiciary, we are the loser. I'm the biggest loser as well, because when I mentioned this during his funeral during the week, that when I was appointed, he said to me, young man, you are appointed as my leader, but you're very young, but you can rest assured, I will respect you and I will guide you when you seek my guidance about anything. And it is with those words ringing in my ears when I decided to request him to say, with the passing of Judge George Maluleka, could he please take over from him as Judge President of the Family Division of the Gauteng Division? And he did not hesitate. I want to confirm, sitting here, that as a student in those years during apartheid, we always challenged each other. Deputy Judge President Ledoba is here because we were in the same class at the University of the North, to say when we are given work and assignments to research court judgments, we never saw a black name. All we saw were European names or what so-called white names. And we challenged each other to say, we are studying law. The legacy we can leave for South African society is to change that status quo, to ensure that you start seeing African names in the law reports. Judge Monama is one of those who, even though he was far ahead of us as a lawyer, and he was far ahead of us on the age ranks, but he made sure that he leaves his legacy. His name will be seen and his judgments will be read by posterity in the South African law reports. I also want to acknowledge those colleagues of ours who have gone on to superior courts. I see Justice Matopo is sitting with us here. He worked with Justice Monama in this division before he went to the SCA and now the Constitutional Court. But we also have retired judges who are here with us, just to make sure that they are part of this occasion when we honor Justice Monama. I see Justice Samuel is here, Justice Mavundla is also here. Thank you very much, colleagues. Your presence here fortifies our view that we should always remember our own whenever they have departed the shores of this earth. I want to say before I leave the baton to Judge Satchwell, I've asked her to share my slot because she's the oldest of the justices who have retired, who are here with us. She has fond memories of Justice Monama when they were still in practice and when they were judges. But before I hand over the baton, I want to make one comment to say, as the judiciary, we will always remember Justice Monama. We will always remember him. You know, you heard some of the judgments that he penned, but it was not lost to Justice Monama the fact that as a judge and as a so-called transformation judge, because that's what we are called as black judges, we are transformation judges, that we should make sure that the transformation agenda of the Constitution is put uppermost in what we do. I recall one case where we as judges, we like to complain about this precinct, that it's unsafe for us, advocates get marked, and then the Johannesburg City Council decided to ban all hawking around the around this precinct, especially along Garrick Street. and the hawkers who were represented brought an urgent application in this court. That matter was heard by none other than Justice Monama, and he didn't find any problems in ruling offside the conduct of the Johannesburg City Council. Uppermost in his mind was the Johannesburg City Council must find ways of accommodating the efforts of the vulnerable members of African society who are trying to eke out a living by selling their goods around the court precinct. So I'm just mentioning that case to say the transformation agenda of the Constitution was not lost to Justice Monama. And I want to say to the family, I hope you take heart in what you see today, us as a judiciary assembled here, sharing our stories with Justice Monama. The one last comment I want to make is, those of us who practiced during apartheid and appeared in apartheid courts, particularly the magistrates' courts and in the high courts, notice that there's a very strong disease that afflicts people who are appointed as judges. That strong disease didn't afflict Judge Monama. And unfortunately, when I asked him how he has managed to avoid it, he said, I will tell you one day, young man. Signs of that disease are a high intolerance of the judge of people appearing in his court, a huge ego level in what the judge does, as well as a complete disregard of human rights. That disease is called judgitis. Judge Monama didn't have that disease. And I want to believe that in Gauteng today, we don't have a judge who is afflicted by that disease. And I hope that status quo continues. Can I then, Deputy Judge President Sutherland, hand over to Judge Satwa to also say a few words? Thank you very much.
Judge President, acting Judge President, Deputy Judge President, brothers and sisters of this division, but especially to the family members of our brother and my brother, Honourable Monama. I'm a retired judge, and I'm very honoured to speak in memory of Honourable. Our Judge President referred to me as the oldest judge here. I take exception. I just happen to have retired some time ago. But I want to say that I knew Ramaruma in three capacities. And the one capacity that probably most people here don't remember is that of an attorney, because it's something we both had in common. When I became a judge in this division in 1996, I was the second attorney, and it was very controversial. I too am a transformation judge. If one was an attorney, one was a transformation candidate, and one had to make one special effort. But I had known Ramaruma because we were contemporaries, particularly in the 80s. And at different times we used to bump each other in the magistrates' court, sometimes in the black divorce court. And as Mr. Lepetra has pointed out, particularly in the Commissioner's Court. Every second Monday was my day to do pass laws. And we would meet in that court. It was an appalling court. And I'm particularly pleased that you made reference to his work there and his writing there. Because South Africa forgets our past and forgets how the law was administered. And I don't say how justice was administered, how the law of the time was administered. And Ramaruma was there at the front line. And just as ordinary people and black people in this country were treated, indigenous people of this land were treated in those courts, I can assure you that attorneys such as Honourable Monama were treated with disdain, with arrogance by the commissioners. There was hostility to everything they did. I was very protected. I was a white attorney in that court. I got away with a lot. But often in our second, life together as judges, and we only overlapped by about 6 years, we used to reminisce about this. And we reminisced mainly in our third capacities, which was as member of a tea club and a lunch club. And there he was, quiet, dignified, quietly spoken, but with a voice to be heard. And I must tell you, he and I, George Maluleke, the older ones, we used to sit and talk about what it was like in those old days. It really was quite boring for other people, because we would reminisce about a past which for some people had no relevance, but to us it was very relevant. But in our second lifetime together in the judiciary, to which Mr Van der Merwe has referred, I think we will all smile when we think of Judge Honourable Monama. He was courteous, as has been described. He had a quiet voice, but as I say, he had a voice. He was always incredibly well dressed, and that put some of us to shame because I'm always incredibly unwell dressed. I sat with him in courts, in appeals. I can think of one appeal. It involved a road traffic civil damages case, and he and I disagreed with Judge Nigel Willis. I was quite pleased with that. But I also remember the tea club and all the qualities that pertain to him as a man and that you, the family, know, that you think of. And when hopefully you will smile as you think about him. That's what we had in the tea club. This well-dressed, rather dapper man who had quiet things to say and was a real gentleman. So, a man of dignity, a man of humour, his family can be proud. Thank you, Judge President, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Satchwell. I call now on Advocate Deploy to speak on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority and on behalf of the Deputy Director of Public Prosecution.
Judge Mandu, Deputy Judge President Sutherland and Mwaba, all the justices, and ladies, and Honourable Justice Montok. On behalf of the Director of Public Prosecutions, first, I'd like to apologise. We had a family emergency and had to go to Limpopo earlier this morning. Unfortunately, now I have to stay here, which is also, according to me, very apt because as the recent last 6 years as the role planner, one of the many judges that made a huge impact on me, I got to deal with. The Gauteng local division forest has grown silent. A giant tree has fallen. Judge Honourable Monama, the revered and respected judge, particularly in our criminal courts, has passed away. Judge Monama will be remembered, especially by me, for his passion for justice for the people that must prevail. He worked tirelessly in his sphere towards what he termed as the restoration of respect of the bench, discipline in the courts, and the maintaining of high standards, especially when dealt with criminal matters, where it so apply to what the public perceive us of. Judge Monama recently, up until he passed away, presided over a spate of high-profile, complicated, very stressful criminal matters, like the State vs. Barkhuizen matter, Rosemary and Govan, one of the most prolific what is called either a mass killer or serial murder, State vs. Durant. Unfortunately, didn't finish with State vs. Bitboy and two others. You will recall this is where the young boy with Down syndrome was shot dead. And then, as my colleague also indicated, he was the custodian and dealt with the matter of State vs. Rodriguez, also known as a criminal matter. Now, Judge Monama had a no-nonsense approach in the court. He detested if matters could not proceed to be finalized. He imparted this high standards of work ethic onto all that appeared in his court. Yet he was also approachable. He always had some wisdom to give in court and in chambers. And if he would phone me and invite me for coffee, I knew that I would have coffee, but there would be some string attached as to what he thinks should happen in the court and how prosecutors and defense counsels should behave. Judge Monama will be sorely missed, not only by his family, but by everybody that he interacted with. I don't know whether I should say this, but Judge Monama called me, he is my boogeyman. He said, because what I do when I have cases that's on the roll that needed management, what I wanted to happen, then I would place them in front of Judge Monama and just whisper in his ear that I'm tired of the prosecutor and the counsel. They have to come to the party. He would phone me often in the afternoons, driving from Palm Ridge, telling me that he's tired and should stop giving him these cases. And luckily for me, then I blamed the JP. And said, yeah, the JP allocated that cases. After being allocated as the senior judge in Palm Ridge, those courts had for the last 5 terms consecutively been the best performers in this division. When it came to court hours and matters followed, under his guidance and the leadership, leading by example, especially with the acting judges there around and no other big brothers to run to, he brought justice to the people. In his way, that faith restored in our courts. But people don't realize criminal work in the law sphere is but 10%. It's not always seen as glamorous. It's not where the money is. But that is where the people are. That is where it counts. And what we have to understand is this division, these courts, are the biggest in the country. There is no division in the country that has more criminal courts than Johannesburg. There is no division in this country that day by day, week by week, month per year, has more criminal matters and appeals. Appeals say that the judges should understand, sometimes they feel we bombard them. We handle, finalized, around 400 plus in a year. Our closest rivals, Western Cape, barely touched 200. The work that was done by this man, the way it was done, makes a difference. To the family, I thank you. I'm not missing.
Thank you, Advocate Dutoye. I now call on Advocate Glenari on behalf of the Legal Aid South Africa to address this.
Thank you. Honourable Judge President, Honourable Deputy Judge President, and Honourable Justices, as well as the family of Justice Monama. I represent Legal Aid South Africa. I'm the High Court Unit Manager in Johannesburg. I first met Justice Monama approximately 10 years ago as legal counsel appearing before him in a criminal appeal. And thereafter, I appeared before him a number of times. Later on, I became manager. I would meet with him, my capacity as manager. Judge Monama struck me as a remarkable jurist with a sharp legal mind and a passion for justice. Justice Monama never beat around the bush. He always got straight to the point. You always knew exactly where you stood with it. He would be tough on counsel that were unprepared. He expected counsel appearing before him to give their very best for their clients. And as we know, throughout his illustrious career, Justice Monama had himself fought for human rights of the poor and the downtrodden. Counsel that appeared before Justice Monama learned from him and became better jurists as a result. He was someone we looked up to, someone we respected. It was with great sadness that I learned of the passing of Justice Monama. He will be missed. On behalf of Legal Aid, I want to express our deepest condolences to the family of Justice Monama, as well as the honourable members of the judiciary. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate. I now call on behalf of the Bar Association to address this.
Judge President, Deputy Justice President, Justices of the Constitutional Court and Supreme Court of Appeal, Judges of the High Court, and members of the profession, legal fraternity, and most importantly, family of the late Justice Monama. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, it's my honor to pay tribute to the late Judge Honourable Monama, who we as practitioners had his highest respect and regard. Judge Monama was known to us in the profession to be a strong and fearless judge who had a rich and varied career, both as a lawyer and as a jurist. As a lawyer, his contribution in starting the Centre for Applied Legal Studies as long ago as in 1978 showed a commitment to the use of law for the public good, something which is reflected in his many and varied judgments. In preparing to deliver this address today, I looked over the judgments that Judge Monama wrote during his time on the bench. I was struck by how many cases in different areas of law he presided over, and how in two areas in particular, his voice was particularly strong. The first, his decisive and very clear message that violent crime would not be tolerated, and that strong sentences must follow the most egregious cases. And as we have seen in some of his most recent judgments, he felt it strongly. The second area was the realm of public law. He spoke very strongly in some of his judgments about holding the state accountable for its conduct and for upholding the Constitution. I found an unreported judgment from 2016, Democratic Alliance versus ICASA, where Judge Monama emphasized the need for freedom of expression, particularly in political campaigns, and particularly regarding police conduct. The case arose from a refusal by the SABC to air a political effort which made reference to deaths of individuals at the hands of police in Marikana and elsewhere. In that case, Judge Monama held that the SABC's conduct was unlawful, and that a decision by ICASA to fine for the SABC and the South African Police Services fell to be reviewed and set aside. He held, and I quote, "There is a close connection between freedom of expression, political rights, and the maintenance of democracy. There is a crucial role to be played by freedom of expression and the right to campaign freely. These rights must be curtailed only in extreme situations where real evidence necessitates. ICASA is expected to guard these rights jealously. It failed the country by not requiring the SABC to screen the entire advertisement concerned." The legacy of Judge Monama, which is so evident in this quote, reminds us of the importance of a strong and independent judiciary, one of the central checks on public power in our democracy. It's also a reminder to us of the importance of a transformed judiciary. And by this, I mean a judiciary transformed not just in terms of race and gender, but transformed ideologically to give effect to the Constitution and to its values in every case that comes before our courts. I believe that we are at a critical time in the history of our democracy, where the judiciary and constitutional institutions are challenged more acutely than at any time since 1994. The legacy of Judge Monama and others who fought very hard for our hard-won freedom must remind us that while we fight to preserve and enhance an independent judiciary, we must also fight to ensure that it is a transformed one, that administers justice fairly to every person before it, whether the most resourced or the most vulnerable. This would, I imagine, be something Judge Monama would be proud to be a part of. On this sad occasion, we extend our sincere condolences to the family of Judge Monama. We know that the pain of his loss is overwhelming at this present moment, but our hope is that you will be comforted by the rich legacy that Judge Monama has left behind, and by our commitment as members of its profession to live up to that legacy. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you. I now call on Ms. Marty from the Centre for Applied Legal Studies.
Thank you, Deputy Judge President. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to first acknowledge the family and the friends of Judge Monama, as well as honorable members of the judiciary. My name is Palesta Maki. I am the Deputy Director at the Centre for Applied Legal Studies, otherwise known as CALS at Wits University. As many of you would know, Judge Monama was one of the founding members of CALS. After having read CALS's annual reports for the period 1978 to 1983, I have the honor this afternoon of briefly reflecting on Judge Monama's time at CALS. Judge Monama often appeared on behalf of persons who had violated the then past laws in the past courts. Because of his assistance, many people were acquitted. In order for people to comply with the then Urban Areas Act, Judge Monama assisted people in obtaining the necessary qualifications to remain in the urban areas. Judge Monama provided advice to the university staffing office about the problems that affected Black staff members at the university. In response to the discriminatory laws and practices in the legal profession, Judge Monama initiated research looking into the challenges that Black lawyers were facing at the time, such as the difficulty to secure articles in firms and challenges pertaining to being admitted as attorneys. Judge Monama also made time to supervise students who were conducting research in the aspects of public law course. As mentioned by Mr. Mapepe earlier, one of the key projects he worked on while he was at CALS was research that he led on the lack of fair trial processes in the then Johannesburg Fast Court of the Commissioner's Courts. As a result of this research, crucial procedural changes took place in the Commissioner's Courts, and the research that he led gave rise to the provision of free legal services and representation for people charged under the past laws in the Commissioner's Courts. It is with immense pride that I say that many distinguished lawyers from CALS have followed in the footsteps of Judge Monama, and that to date, CALS, which is now a 44-year-old organization, continues to use the same tools that he did: strategic litigation, research, and advocacy to challenge discriminatory laws and policies. Just yesterday, CALS was in the High Court of Victoria challenging parts of the Legal Practice Act, which prevents BCom graduates from being admitted as attorneys. My colleagues and I are very grateful to Judge Monama for his and his colleagues for having founded CALS, and I hope that at the time of his passing, he was proud of the institution. As I come to a close, I'd like to repeat what some of my colleagues in the legal profession have said about Judge Monama. He's been described as a brilliant jurist and lawyer, as a principled man, as diligent, as someone who's committed to the betterment of people's lives. He revered education, he was gentle, yet was not afraid to speak truth to power. He was kind and he had a sense of humor. I pray that his family and his friends and the honorable colleagues are comforted and that they have peace reigns with the time. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. I now call on Mr. Bloom on behalf of the Johannesburg Attorneys Association to speak. Judge President Mambo, Deputy Judge President Ebola, Deputy Judge President Sutherland, all members of the judiciary, as well as members of the family, on behalf of the Johannesburg Attorneys Association, of which I am the chairperson, we'd like to extend our sincere condolences to the judiciary as well as to the family. I feel very much enlightened and good about what I've been hearing about our beloved judge, and my contribution to this takes a slightly different angle, and I'd like to quote from a scripture in the Bible, 2 Timothy 4:7, that says, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." It says in verse 8, "Henceforth there is laid upon for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, how apt, will award to me on that day." And in this instance, I like to contribute that Judge Monama fought a good fight with all his achievements, and he wanted to facilitate justice. And why it's all specifically for me was that in 2020, August, I got a phone call, Judge President Monama, one morning, that an incident was unfolding in the Alvarado Park with a Down syndrome boy that has been shot. And I then went to the scene, and it was quite astonishing what was unfolding on the day. And we all then know that this matter culminated in the matter involving a young man called Nathaniel Juice. And I then became the legal representative for the family, guided through the process up until the point of the trial. And the trial, as Advocate Boyd has indicated, was convened by Justice Monama. And I remember one specific incident during the trial where he got irritated with counsel arriving late, and the reprimand was stern, the reprimand was tough, and the reprimand was taken that justice needs to be served in this matter. So from a personal point of view, it struck me how he handled the matter. It struck me that a child so vulnerable that was killed under these tragic circumstances had to land before Justice Monama. And as the family representative, I was very happy that a judge such as Justice Monama was presiding over this matter. Unfortunately, fate reality differently, and he could not finish the matter, as we all know. But on behalf of the Johannesburg Attorneys Association, the executive committee, as well as the attorneys profession, we'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the family once more, and the judiciary, as I indicated before. And on another personal note, it carries a lot of meaning to me as an attorney, because I also, Judge Satchwell, was an attorney that appeared in this particular court. And just as Justice
Adams that is also sitting with us. And I was always asked by advocates, who's your counsel? I said, well, I'm my own counsel. Are you appearing? Yes, I'm appearing. Are you really appearing? Yes, I'm really, it's me. I've got the outfit on, so I guess I'm appearing. And I draw a lot of inspiration from people such as Judge Statful. I've appeared before many times. I've been reprimanded for all manner of things before. I remember Judge Adams as well, and Judge Monama, Judge Adams, Judge Statful, they are inspirations, especially from the position. I do not accept Judge Monama that it's a position of disadvantage. I accept it as a challenge that one can use your right of appearance in this esteemed court and excel at that. So Judge Monama is definitely one of our role models. He appeals to me personally because of the matters that I've mentioned. And on behalf of the Johannesburg Attorneys Association and its executive committee, we are saying to the family and the judiciary, we extend once more our sincere condolences and may so indeed receive.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. That concludes the addresses on behalf of the officials. I'm now going to ask Mr. Latu Murithi to speak to us on behalf of the family.
Honourable Judge President Nambo, Honourable Deputy Judge President Dwaba, Honourable Deputy Judge President Sutherland, esteemed members of the judiciary present, good afternoon. I stand here as the representative of the Monama family at the instance of our elder, Mr. William Monama, who wished to attend the service but could not due to ill health. He sends his apologies in this regard. He has asked me to express his deep gratitude for this opportunity, as we collectively continue to mourn our father, grandfather, your colleague and friend. On behalf of the Monama elders and the entire family, we are deeply thankful to you, Judge President, and your Deputy Judge Presidents, and the judiciary at large for all the support provided since the passing of our brother, uncle, father, and granddad. I would like to acknowledge and thank Judge President Gambo for visiting the family and offering words of comfort during our bereavement, attending and speaking at the funeral. Deputy Judge President Ndwaba for assisting in the arrangements and involvement of the members of the judiciary who were able to attend and for attending and speaking at the funeral. Your presence meant a lot to the families. Deputy Judge President Sutherland for arranging the virtual memorial service and consoling with the family, as well as attending the funeral. We are deeply thankful. The family extends word of appreciation to all members of the judiciary who attended the funeral and those who could not attend but had the family in their prayers. Prayer level. As a family, we would further like to extend a word of appreciation and gratitude to the Office of the Chief Justice and to the Secretary General who caused the officials to provide the family with logistical support. This support made the preparations and the proceedings on the final day a lot easier. As a family, we are eternally grateful for the kindness, thoughtfulness, and prayers during this difficult time. All the kind gestures made our days a lot more bearable, easier, and comforting. From the bottom of our hearts, and may you all be blessed. We thank you.
We come now to the point in the proceedings where I want to address the sentiments of the judges of the division about our brother Honourable. As is our custom, we invite colleagues who have known Judge Monama to pen tributes which are collected in an anthology. That anthology has been prepared, and I now wish to hand it over to the Monama family. If I can call on our court manager, Mr. Zimandi, to come up to the bench, to take the booklet and to hand it over to the members of the family. We've now come to the end of the proceedings. The court will rise soon, and I ask everyone, when we do rise, to remain standing and to allow the family delegation to lead the exodus from the courtroom. Thus, our final remarks then, in remembrance of our brother Ramarumo, let us go forth in the knowledge of what is right and strive to serve the cause of justice.